Hello, it's Ricky from Jimmy's here. We get a lot of questions about the differences between the Life Fitness cross trainers, the model codes, and what the actual feature differences are. Now, Life Fitness being helpful, they have a few different series numbers, and they have a few different model numbers. Now, the model number that we're going to be talking about today is the 9500 HR. You can see it on the back of the machines. On some of them, on the newer machines, you'll also see that code on the side pod as well. On the side down there, 9500 HR. That's the particular one we're going to be talking about here. The 9500 is generally the top of the range model. In most countries, that would be the top of the range one that's available anyway. The main feature differences that affect the end user. These older HRCTs that you can see in front of me, these are what's commonly known in the trade as front drive units, because the rotation units and all of the components of the mechanical components are located in the front of the machine. And these newer cross trainers that you can see over here, these are what are known as rear drive unit. These are also referred to as the next generation cross trainers, and these are the newer version. Now, as you'll be able to see, the console and the programs contained are pretty much identical. There's a colour change there, but the display, the buttons, they're pretty identical. You've got the inbuilt heart rate handles here. These are also polar compatible, and that's on the newer one. On the older one, you can see again polar compatible heart rate handles. So the major differences that people encounter: these older front drive units, they need to be plugged into the mains to operate. They don't have any, they use an alternator for resistance, but they do not have any battery or any charging facility on the alternators. These newer next generation cross trainers, they have a battery located, a rechargeable battery located down in the front pod there. In another video I'll probably show you about changing those batteries. And then here in the rear rotation unit, you'll find the alternator which controls both the resistance and charging of the battery. So they're referred to as cordless units because they don't need to be plugged into the mains. The next generation units are considerably lighter. They have these nice little handy wheels at the bottom, at the back, which make moving the units around quite simple and easy. On the opposite end of the scale are the front drive units, which are exceptionally heavy and exceptionally difficult to move. They do have wheels on the front, but unless you have a couple of good trolleys, they are very difficult to move around. So in terms of other features, the older units do benefit from having these sidebars, which you can see here. Good for people who only want a lower body workout, and some people who may need to stabilise themselves on the cross trainers. Especially good for some new users that are not familiar with the use of the machines. On the newer units, Life Fitness did away with these sidebar handles in exchange for what are known as the bull horns. So instead of your arms being at the side of you, they're in front of you. A little bit more comfortable, gives you a much more comfortable posture once you're used to it. The other huge difference and change that was it's massive really between the two machines, and the real key difference, and some of it comes down to preference. Some people prefer the older machine. If you can see from kind of a side-on profile, you can't make it out too well. The foot pedals on these machines don't tilt very much, and especially the back one, they remain relatively flat as they go through the elliptical motion. They do have a forward and backwards and an up and down part, so they are an elliptical motion. It's not a perfect circle, but the stride is slightly shorter and the pedals don't tilt as much. Now obviously when you're running off the ball of your feet, and the newer units mimic that a lot better. If you can have a look at, you can see the angle of the silver one, the black one back there, the pedals. You can see how your foot is angled to run off of the ball a lot more. And if I can just spin this one to show you, you can see the exact, hang on. See as the back tilts up, I don't know if you can make that out on the video. Hopefully that's helpful for you anyway. Most people find that the newer rear drive units have a longer stride and they're a lot more comfortable. The handles are positioned slightly better. They have a very similar angle on them. The top arm is a little bit shorter, so from the pivot point upwards, the pivot point right here up to the top of the handle is a lot shorter. Some people find that a lot more comfortable, whereas on the older units, as you can see from the pivot point down here up to the top of the handle, is a lot longer. There's a lot more to it, so the arms can potentially go a little bit further on the older units. Now that is compensated for a little bit inside the drive mechanism, but it's something worth noting. We also then get questions relating to the newer 95X size, which again is the newer model. Hang on, the light would be better if I stand over here. We've got a few of these in that are just waiting to be serviced. There's not a great deal of difference between these and the next generation ones I was just showing you, the rear drives. They changed a few of the casings and the consoles are updated, but essentially most of the core programs are the same. The stride is very similar. They have the similar kind of motion, a little bit nicer to use. The consoles have a few more buttons and the displays are a little bit nicer, especially on the 95X size. On the top of the range ones you have a little extra display that's quite helpful, but overall there's not much difference. Again, they're a cordless unit, so they don't need to be powered by the mains. If you've got any questions about any of those cross trainers, please just send us a question.